Welcome to the F1Stop show. I'm your host, Sam Oney, and this is episode 10. With me, as always, where's Spinman? Where's my man? My cricket man. Hey! How are you today? How are you?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks. Yeah, playing cricket today at time of recording for the first time in about a month, which is always nice. Yeah, we've got the Canadian Grand Prix to look forward to as well. Sometimes throws up the odd spanner in the works. It can be particularly wet at times. To come back to 2011, I suppose, the most famous one. But yeah, I'm pretty good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So the Canadian Grand Prix is here with us this weekend. But before that, let's go back a week into the Catalonia, the Barcelona for the Spanish Grand Prix, and just a recap of what happened. And well, Max Verstappen again doing what he does from start to finish. In fact, the whole weekend, Max Verstappen did everything from practice to qualifying. He got pole and he won the race.
Yeah, it was about as dominant a weekend as you could get from Verstappen, really. Let's face it. I think he topped every practice session, top qualifying, got pole by half a second, I think it was in the end, which is a bloody long time qualifying. Led every lap of the race, fastest lap. It's about as much of a grand slam as you can get. Um, and yeah, hats off to Red Bull for creating an absolute monster of a car, and obviously Verstappen being the top quality driver we know he is. Yeah, for some reason he still didn't get a 10 in the F1 power rankings, I think they call it. He got like a 9.6 or something, and it just begs the question: what has he got left to do to get a 10 in a race weekend? If he tops every practice session, tops qualifying, pole by half a second, lights the flag, fastest lap, what more can he do to get a 10? Really? Um, yeah. Other than that, it wasn't that exciting a Spanish Grand Prix, was it really? Certainly not as entertaining. There wasn't the strategy battles that we've had the last couple of years. I'm looking back at sort of 2021 really for that. Yeah, for that's off to Norris for getting P3 in qualifying until I think he crashed into someone in the first quarter and dropped down to, I think he finished 17th in the end, Norris. Slightly
I think he
disappointing.
had contact with Hamilton that first lap. Yeah.
And then bit of an off weekend for Aston Martin, finishing I think sixth and seventh in the end. Stroll and Alonso. The first time Alonso's finished outside the top five this year. At his home Grand Prix as well, which is a little bit disappointing. And Sainz dropped down a few positions. Well, started second, I think, finished fifth. Um, but our Mercedes back, finished two and three. Yes, albeit a long way behind Verstappen, but I think they got one and two in free practice. One, I don't know, I can't remember if we had free practice two in Canada yet. Yeah, they certainly seem to have upped their game the last 2 weeks, Mercedes.
Yeah, I have to say it's a good thing to see, but personally I don't want to hold it just yet because yes, they had the upgrades in Monaco, I believe. Monaco, yeah, Monaco. They had it in Monaco, and they went to Spain, and Hamilton got a podium. George Russell did well, and they're here in Canada. But I don't want to hold it just yet because I want them to win a race, be consistent, hopefully try and challenge Red Bull, close that gap to being on the front row, and well, it remains to be seen. So yeah, the Spanish Grand Prix it wasn't really entertaining as we've mentioned. So how would you rate the race out of 10?
Um, yeah, it's just nothing really memorable, is there really? Um, Besides maybe Norris getting P3 in qualifying. Dude, to be honest, I really can't remember anything that exciting about it.
out of 10, I'd probably give it 5, 4 even, just because well, nothing really happened, if you get what I mean. So that's the Spanish Grand Prix. On to Canada. But just before we touch on Canada, let me ask you, what makes a race memorable? What makes an F1 race memorable? Is it what as a driver or as a fan? What makes it memorable for you? Like when you're there watching it on the TV or live at the circuit, what makes it memorable? What do you want to remember about it?
But I suppose the main thing is you've got to have those on-track battles, and whether it be for first place, whether it be for 19th place, whatever. Um, you need to have those on-track battles, especially if they're between sort of three, four drivers, all vying for one spot. That's just what makes it interesting because quite often you can just predict who's going to win, who's going to come second, who's going to come third. I mean, I think Verstappen's won all but two races this season with Perez winning the other two. Um, so yeah, Red Bull are just so dominant, and as given, I suppose the dominance of a certain of one team. Obviously, Red Bull for the last year and a bit, Mercedes before that, Red Bull before that, and Ferrari before that. You have to look sort of further down into the grid to actually find battles and find sort of exciting moments of Grand Prix. And for me, I always look to the midfield. And I mean, being a McLaren fan, that's what the team are anyway. Um, but yeah, you need to have those on track battles between, as I say, minimum two drivers, if not three, four, ideally. A bit of rain always
Yeah,
helps a bit, especially I suppose sort of to an extent, like we saw in Monaco, just coming in with the last few laps of the race. Or are people going to try and stick it out on the slick tires? Are people going to switch to Inters, play it a bit safe? And obviously, as we saw in Monaco, Inters was the safe way, and I think a few people got onto full wets actually by the end of the race.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so yeah, sort of changeable conditions, different tire strategies. You don't want a track that's too easy on the tires, I think, because quite often lead to a pretty simple strategy: one stop, maybe a two stop. Um, yeah, I mean, I sort of missed the days where you had cars pitting three, four, five times in the space of the Grand Prix. I think yes, they had refueling in those days as well, which I think is obviously been gotten rid because it's not fully safe if you got if you got obviously hot cars with petrol.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's been a few instances in the pit lane when it comes to refueling over the years. But yeah, I think having said that, I think is it Bridgestone are vying to become F1's tyre supplier. I think I've heard rumours of that somewhere. Yeah, Pirelli
mm.
give us better tyres, or it is sort of in a way worse tyres, so we can have more pit stops. Um, yeah, I think those are the main sort of three things for me.
I think. Sorry.
On track battles, changeable conditions, and different strategies playing out would be the main three things.
uh, um, the main three memories for me when I'm watching a race would be um, on track, like you said, on track battles. You have to look further down into the midfield, back of the grid, to really see the exciting stuff. I mean, we've had it in the past. Maybe like team. It's always teams like Alpine, AlphaTauri, McLarens, those sort of ones. That's where it's all exciting because the big three will be so far ahead. You'll be like, oh, there they go, and now you're just not stuck with the midfield teams, but it's the midfield teams that make the things more exciting. You know, so that's that. The third is I don't know. I think I think pit stops are something that will remember because it's not every day that it takes you 24 hours or more to get a tire nut off your car, does it? Yes, Valtteri Bottas, I'm talking about you, but it's okay. But yeah, pit stops, memories, because it takes what 21 seconds to get in, and then a further what, depending on how long it takes you to do your pit stop, you could be spending what 30 seconds if I'm correct.
Yeah, it depends on the track, but yeah, a good pit stop. You're saying around 2 seconds. Yeah, total time in the pit lane 25 to 30.
Yeah,
Certainly don't want to be going over 30. I mean, obviously it depends on the pit lane. Some tracks have longer. I think Silverstone's is pretty long. But yeah, you need quick pit stops. To be, as you say, that Bottas one, however many years ago now, in it was interesting in its own way because it was just
yeah,
like, hang on a second, what's actually happening here? Um, but it took a driver out of the race when I don't think he was on to win it, but certainly have a good finish. Yeah, certainly if you have someone trying to go for the undercut, someone trying to do the overcut, again, it all comes down to those strategy battles and what teams are doing differently to each other and who they see as their rivals. And yeah, it just things like that is what makes racing
yeah.
interesting.
And then one last thing that makes a good memory is just just being there in the exact moment to witness something that's happened. So, for example, um, 2021 or 2022 British Grand Prix Cops Corner between Verstappen and Hamilton. We all know what happened there. So, like if you're a fan and you're in that area or you're on the TV watching it, and you're like, you see the collision happen, you're like, wow, that's significant. And it was significant in the season because Verstappen went on to win the championship. But being there in that moment, you're like, wow, no one can take that away from you. So I think that's something that really you know makes a memory in F1 as well. Um, so Canadian Grand Prix at the Jules Villeneuve Circuit, Montreal. Um, Street circuit, as you said, Verstappen won it last year. What are you expecting this weekend, this Sunday?
I mean, hopefully more teams challenge Red Bull. And obviously, Verstappen and Red Bull are so clear of everyone else. But having said that, we've seen Mercedes go fast in practice, so um, hopefully they'll challenge a bit more fight Verstappen and Perez for those podium spots. Whether Aston Martin can come back into the fold, I haven't um, seen how they've done in free practice. There is a bit of weather around. I think it's supposed to be raining today, Saturday, qualifying day, so that could shake up the grid a bit.
Mm,
Um, I don't think there's as much rain around tomorrow. I think it's just supposed to be overcast tomorrow. Um, Again, that obviously change of track temperature, whether that impacts the tyres and team strategy. Um, yeah, I'd love to see, yeah, just, I mean, Aston Martin, Alonso to get back inside the top five. Um, Hamilton and Russell take it to the Red Bulls and Ferrari to get, I mean, when you said the 24 hours in regards to Bottas' pits, that reminded me. Ferrari obviously won the centenary Le Mans 24 hours. You
yeah,
think, wow, if they can win an event like that, how come they can't do the same with their F1 team? Um, to run a whole car full race pace for a day straight, and yet their F1 cars break down halfway through the race or just
yeah,
aren't as good as the others. It's begs the question: is are Ferrari putting their money in the right areas, so to say? Um, yeah. Love to see Mercedes back fighting for those podium positions. Alonso top five, hopefully. Love to see McLaren back in after Norris's P3 in Spain. Yeah, hopefully some rain today shakes the grid up a bit for tomorrow's race.
yeah. Um, and hopefully this time. So last year, Sergio Perez didn't finish the race. Hopefully he can, you know, finish it. And yeah, so let's see. Who are your top ten race finishers, if you like?
Um, I'll go Verstappen one. I think that's that's pretty much a given. Um, I'm going to go.
Or actually, let's change it up a bit because
All right.
we've always done top 10 finishers. Let's do a game of higher or lower, if you like.
Okay.
So, um, all right then. First one. This is in the race, by the way. So the race finishes. Who finishes higher or lower? So Yuki Tsunoda and Yuki Tsunoda and Guan Yu Zhou. Who finishes higher? Who finishes lower?
Tricky one to start off that. I can't remember
That's
why
a
they are on the
tricky
drive.
one.
I know Sonoda's had a decent start to the season. They're there or thereabout in the points. Um, in fact, Sonoda's got 2 points. Guan Yu's got four, so it's pretty close.
That's a tough one.
I reckon Sonoda is not well, not on paper anyway, not finished as well as Guan Yu, but it's such a close one to call. um, yeah, I can't really put a finger on why Sonoda, but I'm going to go with Sonoda. Who are you going for?
Um, I'm gonna go for Guan Yu Zhou, just because again we have well I don't know. He's racing for Alfa Romeo and they're what seventh, eighth in the constructors. Yeah, and I just think he's just one to go about his race quietly. He's not really one of the big shout outs, and I think that's what I like about drivers like that. Just someone who goes about their race, gets a decent amount of points, and yeah, I think Guan Yu Zhou is going to finish higher than Sonoda. Right, number two, Carlos Sainz or Lando Norris.
Carlos Sainz, 100%, just based on the car, I think. But now, obviously, as we saw in Spain, it was pretty close between the two in qualifying. Um, yeah, I just reckon. I think Sainz is a slightly better driver. I know, especially when they were teammates at McLaren, it was pretty close. I think. Yeah, I think Spain was just a bit of a one-off for McLaren and Lando in qualifying. Um, I think they have had some decent. Did they get double points in Monaco or something? Um, I'm pretty sure they got double points at the Grand Prix this year, but yeah, I just think Sainz and Ferrari is yeah they've got more of a chance of finishing top five, top six than Lando and McLaren.
Okay, all right. Um, I'm gonna go for a bit of a risk here. Lando Norris, Lando Norris to finish ahead of Carlos Sainz. I mean, I think, I think that would overshadow like the race winners. You know, you know what I mean. So if Verstappen were to win the Canadian Grand Prix on Sunday, but Lando Norris finishes ahead of Sainz, I think Lando Norris finishing ahead of Sainz would be much bigger than that. So yeah, right. Final one. Who finishes higher or lower? Kevin Magnussen, Alex Albon, Nick De Vries. I wanted to say a fourth one, but I think I'll stop there. Yeah. Kevin
I
Magnussen,
think
Alex
with that, it's sort of
Albon,
like
Nick De Vries.
it's a case of who's vying for last place amongst those three, isn't it? I mean, De Vries has just had a pretty poor start to the season. I mean, almost halfway into the season now. I think this is
Yeah.
race nine, so yeah, between a third and a half, if the math is correct. Um, I mean, just looking at the drivers down here, Magnussen's got 2 points, Albon's got one, and De Vries hasn't got any. So it really is a case of yeah, of the back three. Um, I reckon Magnussen. He's just got. I think he's obviously the most experienced driver of the three, and I think to be fair to Haas, I think they're seventh in the constructors. Yeah, seventh with yes only 8 points, but ahead of Alfa Romeo. Well, let's say ahead, they're joint on 8 points. AlphaTauri two and Williams with just one. I think on the basis of experience and yeah, Haas doesn't have a great car, but it's marginally better than the AlphaTauri and the Williams of De Vries and Albon. Although to be fair, Albon on his day, he had some pretty good Grand Prix last year, got some points for Williams. Yeah, I think just based on averages, I think yeah, Magnussen it will be finishing higher up, albeit not by many places. It'll probably be only by
Yeah.
a place or two. They'll probably finish 17th, and the others finish 18th, 19th, or something. Um, yeah, Magnussen for me out of those.
Okay. Um, I have to agree with you on that one. Magnuson's finish higher than the both of them. So, but yeah. So to the people out there, who do you think is going to finish higher? Magnuson, Sarge, sorry, Magnuson, Albon, or Nick De Vries? That's my question to you guys. So yeah, okay, we've pretty much come to the end of another episode of the F1 Stop show, and well, now I heard something online about Max Verstappen once said he hopes that Alonso wins a race this season. What's your take on that? Is that just a goodwill gesture, or I don't know? What do you think of it?
I mean, I haven't actually heard that. That's the
Yeah,
first time I heard it. I think I mean, who doesn't want Alonso to win a race this season? Let's be real. Um, he's what 40 years old, I think. So basically, he'll probably retire after this stint with Aston Martin, I think, because by then he'll be 41, 42. Roughly the same age as that Kimi was when he pulled the plug. Um, yeah, I think obviously given the start Aston Martin have had, yeah, they had a bit of an off weekend in Spain, but yeah, if Alonso can get back to how he was for those first 7 races, pretty much, top four finishes, best of second at Monaco, what 4 podiums in there as well. I'd love to see him win a race. I don't really care where it is, as long as he wins a race. All it takes is one, I suppose, mishap from Red Bull, one piece of luck on Alonso's part, and he'll be there to beat. I think the closest he's got this season is Monaco because yeah, just one mistake to
yeah,
Verstappen. What if he didn't find 3 attempts in 2 corners on that last pole lap? Alonso was probably on his way to victory in Monaco. Yeah, I'd love to see Alonso win a race, and yeah, number 33 is been close so far this season. I just hope it comes by Abu Dhabi in November, December, whenever it is.
yeah. I hope Alonso get a race win as well. It'd be great. Um, so yeah, we've come to the end of another episode of the F1 Stop show. Hope you've enjoyed it. The Canadian Grand Prix is in fact tomorrow, Sunday, which also happens to be Father's Day, which is very nice. Um, but yeah, we hope you've enjoyed the show. I've been your host, Sam Oney, and it's a goodbye from me. Bye bye. It's a goodbye from Wes.
Bye bye.
And we hope you enjoy the race tomorrow in Canada.